एंड वेलकम टू RCI's नवशिखर चैनल। आप सभी का RCI के नवशिखर चैनल में स्वागत है। आज का टॉपिक हमारा जो डिस्कशन का है वो है मैनेजिंग ऑफ स्पेशल नीड्स ऑफ चिल्ड्रन विद विजुअल इम्पेयरमेंट इन इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन। And to adapt this discussion, we have our expert from NCERT, Professor Anita Julka. Welcome to RCI, ma'am.
Thank you.
For our viewers, if they want to contact any number, they can contact us at our toll-free number 1-800-11-2008. Our phone number is 265-11613. Our fax number is 265-11609. They can contact us for any of their queries or if they want to share any information with us. So as the topic says, managing special needs. That means we're talking about the special requirements of children with visual impairment. Children who have a problem in seeing, children who do not see, or children who do not have the ability to visualize the world. And these special needs are specifically for the inclusive education. Inclusive education is one where the children with visual impairment are included in the regular school, in the regular classrooms. So today, ma'am, what are we going to start with?
Actually, I will be talking first about what is inclusive education, because there is a lot of confusion about inclusive education versus integrated education versus special education. So first I will give some introduction to what we mean by inclusive education. Following this, I will also discuss what kind of visual impairments are we talking about, like how are they classified, and finally I will be talking about the special needs of children with visual impairments and how to manage them in inclusive classroom. This briefly would be the overview of my presentation. So let me give you the overview. Yeah.
You can contact us at our toll-free number 1-800-11-2008. Our phone number 265-11613. Our fax number 265-11609. You can call us to inquire about any of your queries or if you want to share any information with us. Continuing, do ma'am.
Okay. The first slide I am showing is on about the overview of the presentation. Like I said just now, I just told you that it will be what is inclusive education. So first we will talk about what is inclusive education. Now inclusive education versus integrated education is one thing which everybody is talking about in the states also. They think it's the same thing, but we are signatory to declaration called the Salamanca Statement, which India has also signed, and Salamanca Statement defined inclusive education, inclusive regular schools in their own way, just to facilitate education for all. According to Salamanca Statement, in which has a number of countries as signatory, developing inclusive schools that cater for a wide range of pupils in both urban and rural areas requires the articulation of a clear and forceful policy on inclusion, together with adequate financial provision, an effective public information effort to combat prejudices and create informed and positive attitudes, an extensive program of orientation and staff training, and the provision of necessary support services. Changes in all the following aspects of schooling as well as many others are necessary to contribute to the success of inclusive schools: curriculum, buildings, school organization, pedagogy, assessment, staffing, school ethos, and extracurricular activities. I will be talking about all these issues and how they can be adapted to suit the needs, special needs of children with visual impairment, because our focus here in today's presentation would be children with visual impairment. Of course, when we talk about inclusive education, we don't segregate the children as visually impaired, mentally retarded, hearing impaired. We talk about all children. It has been defined as acceptance of all pupils within the mainstream education system, taught with a common framework and identified as the responsibility of all teachers. It means that children with visual impairment are not to be thought of as children of special educators. What happens generally is, when a child with visual impairment enters school, regular teachers always say, ये तो हमारा बच्चा नहीं है, ये बच्चा तो resource teacher पढ़ाएंगी. This is not what inclusive education means. It means all children studying together and all children learning together and all teachers looking after the needs of all children. It doesn't say that these children are to be looked by some special teacher and other children are to be looked by the regular teacher. So it is all children together.
So that means a regular teacher becomes a resource teacher too?
No, the regular teacher educates these children with the support of regular resource teacher, because for teaching Braille and for teaching orientation and mobility skills like plus curriculum like this, it is not possible for a regular teacher to be trained in all these things. So it is the collaboration of special educator and regular teacher, but regular teacher is the main person responsible for these children. The special educator would provide support, but the responsibility of looking after them in the class, educating them with the support of special educator would be the responsibility of the regular teacher, like she is responsible for all other children. Now it also means that the early years, when the child is growing and developing in every way, it is important for a child with visual impairment to be involved in the seeing world. Why do we think that we should include children with visual impairment and be given an opportunity to be an equal member of the society? Segregation leads to moving away from society, and moving back to the same society sometimes becomes difficult. Now what happens is that when we segregate children with visual impairment in a special school, then they have only other children with visual impairment around them. They hardly learn much from each other. It is the seeing world they have to go into after leaving the school. It is the society which has to welcome them. They have to know the ways of society. They have to integrate themselves into the society, or the society. They have to be included in the society. So the goal of inclusive education is not only including them in schools, but finally it goes up to including them into the society. Once if you segregate them from the society, to come back into the society is a very difficult process.
They find it difficult to adapt to the environment again.
Not only for them, but also for the society. If you keep people away, I will give you an example. When I was visiting some regular schools which didn't have any child with visual impairment in the classes, I was doing this to create awareness. I felt that it is important for other children or the other sighted children in the classroom to know how these children learn. So I was visiting some regular schools, and I went to a class with a Braille book and a Braille ruler, and I tried to show it, and I took a blind child with me, and I tried to ask the other children, do they know how this blind child reads and writes? The other children said that we have heard something like Braille they use in the reading and writing. I said, do you know they can read your geography books, your maths, they can see your maths books in their own way through Braille. They said, we don't know how it is done. We know there are only 6 dots and they do everything with that. So I made this child with visual impairment to open a book and read fast and loudly in front of these children. You won't believe, even I was so shocked when I saw all the other children. सारे बच्चे उस बच्चे के आसपास ऐसे इकट्ठे हो गए कि वो कोई अजूबा देख रहे हैं. It's a miracle. They felt it's a miracle. How can this happen? The child is reading with the fingers as fast as we are reading, and he's very accurate. So for the first time, in spite of reading all the time, Braille होती है, Braille से read write करते हैं, उन्होंने कभी देखा ही नहीं था. So this kind of exposure is only possible if these children are going to the regular schools. If they are segregated in special schools, the society also would not know them. They will not accept them when they grow and want to take jobs in the society. So from both the angles, for learning of the children with visual impairment and also for acceptance of society of these children as normal, earning, independent citizens of a country, it is important to facilitate inclusive education. I think this is a major benefit of inclusive education.
So like ma'am, we talk about the resource teacher and the regular teacher who's there.
Yes, yes.
The resource teacher is helping the child, or she's helping the normal teacher, the regular teacher?
Both. I would say both.
Okay.
Because if the teacher has to teach the regular child Braille, then she has to take that child out of the class for some times. If the teacher has to teach orientation and mobility skills or meet the needs of this child, then of plus curriculum, then the special teacher has to take this child out of the classroom. But supposing if the regular teacher is teaching a lesson in the class, she has to take help from a resource teacher sometimes to adapt instructions in the classroom, so that this visually impaired child feel included, learn in the regular class like other children. They cannot be taught lessons and curriculum outside the class. This is the responsibility of a regular teacher, and for that she needs help of a special educator to understand how to do it. Because whatever training, कितनी भी आप ट्रेनिंग कर देंगे, कितना भी उनको सिखा देंगे, फिर भी उनको, क्योंकि हर बच्चा अलग होता है, एवरी चाइल्ड इज़ डिफरेंट, हिट्रोजेनिटी है विजुअल इम्पेयर्ड बच्चों के बीच में, जैसे सबके बीच में होते हैं, आपके और मेरे बीच में है, बाकी सबके बीच में भी होती है, सब भिन्न होते हैं, एवरीबडी इज़ डिफरेंट. सो फ्रॉम दैट परस्पेक्टिव आई वुड से it is important that the special educator and the regular teacher collaborate all the time for including children with visual impairment in a regular class.
So are these teachers available the whole time of the school, or they are for particular classes only they come to the school?
There is no system like that. The policy says they should be available for 8 children, one teacher for 8 children. Now in the rural setting, the 8 children may be in 8 villages. So the teacher becomes an itinerant teacher rather than a full-time teacher, and those kind of details are the models of inclusive education we are talking about. I think I will not concentrate on them now. I will talk about the visually impaired children. What is visual impairment? I will come to my next point. Visual impairment means children who are blind and or are having low vision. We classify the visual impairment into 2 categories in our country. We have the visually impaired children divided into either being blind, completely blind, or having low vision. We have a legislation called the Persons with Disability Act, and according to that, blindness refers to a condition where a person suffers from any of the following conditions: total absence of sight, or visual acuity not exceeding 6/60 or 20/200 Snellen in the better eye with correcting lenses, or limitations of the field of vision subtending an angle of 20 degree or worse. Persons with low vision in the Act mean a person with impairment of visual functioning even after treatment or standard refractive correction, but who uses or is potentially capable of using vision for the planning or execution of a task with appropriate assistive devices. Now, if you want to know the difference, the normal difference or a very common difference is a blind person cannot read and write using sight. We are talking here about education, so I will limit it to that. And it means that the blind person has to use Braille as reading and writing, may have a light perception, but a blind person is not completely black. As the notion generally is that blind means no vision. There may be a slight vision, but not usable vision.
Residual vision is there.
Residual vision which cannot be used. Not in all. In some may have only just a light perception, some may have just a hazy kind of form perception. So it differs from child to child. But basically, what a person we can see at the distance of a 6 feet, this people will be able to see at the distance of 60 feet. This kind of disparities between the sighted person and a blind person. Visual field actually means when we rotate our head in 180 degrees, that means what kind of field of vision the person can see. So both are affected, the visual acuity and also the field of vision in case of blind children. Persons with low vision have a vision which they can use using some aids and appliances. Some optic aids, some non-optical aids, but in spite of all that, a person with low vision generally cannot have totally perfect vision like us, even if they wear specs. That is why they are called persons with low vision. They have residual vision and they can wear spectacles, but even with spectacles, their vision cannot be 6/6. you know. So this is the difference between a normal sighted person with spectacles and a person with low vision with spectacles. Whatever aids they are using, their vision cannot be totally corrected. They have some, they will always have some problems even with the better eye. So these are, but they can use their vision for reading print, which can be enlarged. They can also find their way if good contrast is given, if proper lighting is there, light is there. So all these things can help them to use their vision as best as possible.
So I'm like, needs of a visually impaired and needs of a low vision patient is different. They are different completely.
Actually, first of all, I would like to, I'm sorry, but I like to say, let's not call them patients. They are just children we are talking about, and nobody is a patient. They are just like all of us, and you know, the only thing is they cannot see. So they think, they eat, they drink, they play, and they want to watch movies, they want to listen to radio like us. So they are not patients. They are completely normal individuals, except for not having sight. So the special needs of children with complete blindness and children with low vision would be different in some way, because children with no vision may be able to use their vision for reading, writing, for finding their way, but children who are blind cannot use their vision at all. So they have to be given support in many ways. There could be also another classification. There are children who are blind from birth, or first few years of their life they become blind or have low vision. There are other children who become blind or have low vision later in their life. So they have some imagery left. So in that case, you know, they have some usable vision and they have some images also, and they can function better than our children who are blind from birth. So these are the kind of classifications we have when we talk about visual impairment. And also they have nothing, no problem with their brain. I want to emphasize this, because I find that more and more people consider visual impairment related to intellectual impairment. It never happens like that. They have average intelligence or above average and below average like any other child. So vision is not, only vision is affected, and brain is only affected if they are not given the experiences they require. अगर आप कोई बच्चा जो देख नहीं सकता, आप उसको कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं समझा पा रहे, देखने से हम कई कॉन्सेप्ट समझते हैं, लेकिन जो बच्चा देख नहीं सकता और वो कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं समझ पा रहा, उसको आप नहीं समझा रहे, तो वो बच्चे का फेलियर नहीं है, उसकी फेलियर ये किसका है, ये समाज का है जो उनको वो उस तरह पढ़ा नहीं पा रहा जिस तरह वो पढ़ना चाहते हैं. So this is what it is, that they can learn, they can grow, they can work like us, except for certain limitations which have to be, these special needs which have to be met.
So like in special needs, if we talk about, so for a child who's low vision and child who's visually impaired, the requirements will be different in classes, and so are they going to be the resource teachers provision?
You see, the thing is that requirements of every child, even without the visual problem, is different, but somehow we manage them in the same class. The requirements as far as the resource support is concerned would be different, naturally, because if a person who doesn't know English would like to learn English, and a person who doesn't know Hindi would like to know Hindi, learn Hindi. In the similar way, a person who cannot see at all would need to learn Braille, but the person who can read print and use the vision using spectacles or other optical and non-optical aids would not need to learn Braille. So these kind of differences would occur. So that is why when I come to the strategies of managing, I will talk about how you have to take a decision about every child. So this is the needs do differ, and needs do not differ in the sense that they are additional or minus, but depending on the visual use of vision, the needs would occur and differ from each other.
So these cases, like if a regular teacher is teaching a special child, so a resource teacher will take the child in the next class and teach the same thing, or is it like only specific
Actually
topics?
You are again talking about the models.
Okay.
Sometimes you can partially include them in the classroom and take them out for some other activities like teaching Braille and all. Sometimes you need to give them resource support at even the educational subjects. So it all depends on the environment and also the need of the school, how it can happen. Naturally, if you have to teach the child plus curriculum, you cannot teach them in the same class. There are models of co-teaching where both of them are in the same class, the special educator and regular teacher both teach. This is called team teaching, co-teaching. This also happens. There are models like for some activities the child comes out of the class with the special teacher in the resource room, and for some activities the child is in the classroom in the regular this thing. But in our country we cannot talk about these models so openly because we have a rural setup where 80% of these children are residing. Most of the children with disability are found in rural setting. The ratio would be 70 to 30%, and in the rural setting we have schools with 1 or 2 classrooms. So the possibility of taking the child to a resource room and all that is very I would say meek. So in that way they have to make the best of whatever is available. Even under a tree they can teach them Braille. So it all depends on the model or the kind of situation we are working.
So till now we were discussing about what is inclusive education, and we defined what is visual impairment. We'll continue our discussion after a short break.
The chief handicap of the blindness is not blindness, but the attitude of seeing people towards them. आइए जानने और समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि बधिरांधता यानी डेफ ब्लाइंडनेस क्या है। बधिरांधता एक स्थिति है जिसमें दृष्टिहीनता एवं सुनने की शक्ति में कमी आती है तथा जिससे विचारों के आदान प्रदान और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति में समस्या उत्पन्न होती है। बलराम एक 9 साल का बधिरांत बच्चा है। वो एक प्री मैच्योर बच्चा है जिसका शारीरिक विकास उसकी आयु के अनुरूप नहीं हुआ था। वो एक निम्न वर्गीय श्रेणी से संबंध रखता है तथा 5 साल से लगातार नेशनल एसोसिएशन फॉर ब्लाइंड दिल्ली के प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम से संलग्न है। इन 5 सालों के अंतर्गत उसे रोजमर्रा के कामों में, हलन चलन में, उसकी शैक्षणिक जरूरतों के अनुसार संप्रेषण द्वारा प्रशिक्षण दिया गया है जिससे वो इन सब क्रियाओं में स्वावलंबी बन सके। बलराम बिना किसी सहायता के चाकू से फलों को काट सकता है। उनके छिलकों को कूड़ेदान में डाल सकता है। अपने बर्तनों को खुद साफ कर सकता है। उन्हें सही जगह पर रख सकता है। सही बर्तनों का चयन करके खुद खाना खाता है। एवं पानी की बोतल निकालकर पानी भी पीता है। इन सभी क्रियाओं में वो टेक्चुअल साइन लैंग्वेज से निर्देशों को ग्रहण करता है और अपने भावों को व्यक्त करता है। टेलर फ्रेम और ब्रेलर द्वारा गणित, पठन लेखन में भी प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। सभी बच्चों की तरह उसका भी एक मनपसंद खेल है। उसे सेल फोन को अपने कानों पर लगाकर उसका कंपन महसूस करना अच्छा लगता है। कहा जाता है, वॉकिंग विद अ फ्रेंड इन डार्क इज बेटर देन वॉकिंग अलोन इन लाइट। कहने का तात्पर्य है कि वो लॉन्ग केन ट्रेवल, टैक्टाइल पाथ, ट्रेलिंग और लैंडमार्क्स द्वारा हलन चलन में भी सक्षम है और व्यायाम संबंधी क्रियाएं जैसे ट्रेडमिल, स्टैटिक साइकिल का स्वचालन भी कर सकता है। कहा गया है, द बेस्ट एंड मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिंग्स इन द वर्ल्ड कैन नॉट बी सीन और इवन टच्ड, दे मस्ट बी फेल्ट विद द हार्ट।
किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का दर्द मिल सके तो ले उधार, किसी के वास्ते हो तेरे दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है, जीना इसी का नाम है। मान अपनी जेब से फकीर हैं, फिर भी यार दिल के हम अमीर हैं। मिटे जो प्यार के लिए वो जिंदगी, जले बहार के लिए वो जिंदगी, किसी को हो ना हो हमें तो एतबार, जीना इसी का नाम है, जीना इसी का नाम है।
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were talking about what is inclusive education. Then we had talked about the definition, how we define visual impairment. So now what are we going to discuss next, ma'am?
We are going to now discuss about the special needs of children with visual impairment. Let me start with my next slide. Now, children with special needs include not only visual impairment, they also include children having hearing impairments and children with mental retardation, but here we will only talk about special needs of children with visual impairment. The main three characteristics of children with visual impairment are limited opportunities for incidental learning. This means that opportunities available in the environment may be limited for a child with visual impairment because of his or her inability to reach and learn about them by looking. He or she has to be helped through explanation and touch about various objects, concepts and solutions of problems to make him or her more independent. Since there are gaps in knowledge, in introducing a new task, you should assume that no prior learning has taken place. Move on to advanced level only after the child has mastered the prerequisite steps. The second limitation or the second characteristic of visually impaired children would be limitation in the range and variety of experiences. This may occur not only because of limited vision, but also because of inability to freely move about in the environment. It is important to provide opportunities for learning new skills. Because of lack of visual experience, the students with visual impairments may be slower than other students, as the other students unconsciously practice new skills through visual exposure and imitation. The third characteristic is limitation in the ability to get around and interacting with the environment. Now, I talked about three limitations or three characteristics which are there in all children with visual impairment, irrespective of the degree and severity of visual impairment. The first one was limitation in the opportunities towards incidental learning. Now, incidental learning means anything which we do with vision, we take many things for granted. Like for example, opening a door, where is the handle, where is the latch, we know it. We don't even have to look at it, and unconsciously, automatically we do a number of things because we have seen others doing it, you know, and we know where things are there. The chair is there, it is there for sitting, and we will go and sit in a chair. We know there is a table, we will keep a thing on the table. We know it is there, so we will keep a stuff on it. But for children with visual impairment, they don't know. If they are not told even what is an electrical switch, they don't know how to put the electrical plug into the electrical switch. They don't know that it can be dangerous. The same way, they don't know how to open a door because they don't know what is the concept of a latch. These are incidental learning. Incidental, it means just automatically by seeing we do learn number of things, imitating others, which these children do not have the opportunity to learn. And that is why everything has to be told to them. It's right from how to open a door, how to use a chair, what is the table and how it can be used under, above the table, what it all means. Everything has to be taught to them, because vision, which gives you nearly 80% of the information of the environment, is not there. The second characteristic, which means range and variety of experiences. Now, since they cannot move about, they cannot see, their experiences are not the same as of other children. Now, supposing I am talking about sea, Samundra, you know, many children would have seen sea, but these children with visual impairment do not have any exposure or experience of what a sea is like. They haven't seen it. Even if you explain it to them, they would not understand the vastness of a sea. So, they have some concept of a sea which is their own concept. And similarly about other things also, till they experience many things, like when you travel, you see so many things on the road, you see so many types of birds, so many types of animals. These experiences are not there for them. Everything has to be explained to them, that this means this, and every concept has to be enriched with a lot of information from the teachers. So, this is one major limitation for children with visual impairment, and the special needs related to this, of course, in the future slides I will take those. But these things have to be corrected, like experiences have to be provided, the experiences have to be enriched, like with concrete kind of things. If you are talking about grass, then they have to touch the grass and know that this is what grass is. If they are talking about leaves, they have to see what, they have to touch and see what leaves are. So, these kind of experiences have to be provided to them. The third limitation I talked about was limitation of moving around. Now, even if they can walk, even if they can crawl as a small child, they are not able to grasp objects or reach objects because they cannot see. Now, if you see a child with sight, what you see is that the child is stimulated by something in the environment, and the child will run to that. See his or her mother, run to her arms. But a child with visual impairment is scared. Imagine, he doesn't know what is left to him, right to him. His orientation in relation to space is so poor. So, he will have to be told, he will have to be mentally making maps of wherever he is and then walking. So, that is why his limitation to move about affects his cognitive development, affect his experiences, and many things, special needs in education are related to this ability of not being able to, this limitation of not being able to move around.
Ma'am, in many cases, not only does a child has a fear, but even the parents have this overprotection phase. They tend to limit the child from mobility, or even for their prestige in the society, they tend to limit, which limits their experience and the ability to grow their cognitive development.
Yeah, actually, when I come to management of special needs, I'll be talking about this. What happens is that children, teachers also and parents also are scared that these children would be hurt, or if they are allowed them to go for recreation or picnics or playing outside, they may get some injury, something may happen to them. So they tend to overprotect this child. But as a result, the child's experiences are further limited. जो वो सीख सकता है, जो वो कर सकता है, वो भी उसका प्रभावित हो जाता है. पर उसके लिए more than that, I think another effect on the child of these kind of overprotective parents and teachers is that the child's self-esteem comes down. The child starts feeling that he is not or she is not equal to others. ये बहुत बड़ा नुकसान है. बाकी नुकसान जो हैं वो हैं, लेकिन अगर किसी को ये हो कि मैं दूसरे के बराबर ना खेल सकता हूँ, ना जा सकता हूँ, ना वो सब कर सकता हूँ जो मेरे बाकी बच्चे मेरे क्लास में करते हैं, so this affects the child's self-esteem. So I think in all that, you know, the teacher has to manage, the parents have to manage, the teacher has to tell the parents about all this. So I think this is something which is very important, that the child should be given, there should be no discrimination, he should be given the same treatment as other children in the class, with of course caution. That I will tell you the strategy how to do it later. And in the next slide, I will be talking about some specific special needs as a result of these characteristics. These special needs given by Royal Victorian Institute for the Blind are visual efficiency training, basic cognitive abilities like using other senses effectively, orientation and mobility, physical development and recreation, verbal and non-verbal communication, literacy and learning media, use of technology, factual and visual graphics, study skills, career education, psychosocial development, living skills. These are the needs given by the Royal Institute, and actually all the strategies or all the managing strategies have to be used within these needs. Of course, I will not be touching all, because many of them are not related so much to education. They can also be related to rehabilitation, but majority of them I will be touching here. What kind of special needs are there which have to be met in the areas of visual efficiency training or in the area of study skills? All this I will be talking about here. Now, coming to the special needs within these areas of major needs, I will talk first about physical adaptations. What kind of physical, recreational, or whatever you talked just now about picnics and overprotection will be covered under this. Now, when a child with visual impairment goes to school, the child would not be able to walk. As I said, he has a limited ability to move around because he is not able to see what is in front of him, or what is in front, where is the door, where is the corridor, where is the classroom. So the child is a bit slow, and the child is not able to find his or her way around and has to depend on others. Generally उसको कई लोगों से पूछना पड़ता है, और मैंने देखा है स्कूल्स में क्या होता है, कई बार इस तरह के बच्चे जब पूछते हैं, अगर टीचर्स पहले से नहीं बता के रखते, तो द अदर चिल्ड्रन बुली देम और टीज देम, उनको झूठ बोल जाते हैं, उनको तंग करते हैं, जिससे उस बच्चे की और प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं. So by reading this, we come to the physical adaptation, instructing sighted students. This is for the teachers of regular school. When I talk about including children with visual impairment in the regular schools, I am talking giving these strategies for regular teachers, because regular teachers have to include them. They have to instruct sighted students in the class to guide the blind child as per blind child's front, back or left, right requirements. Removing fragile things like flower pot from the class and ensuring there is no sharp edge or nail coming out of the furniture. Giving clear directions and developing the skills of mental mapping. Organizing the classroom by keeping things in the preset places. Familiarizing the child to new places with the help of other children. Helping the child to learn words that indicate direction like under, over, around, behind. Helping the child to learn to run and jump if she or he does not know it. Establishing connectivity between distance, time and speed with which he or she moves. Explaining the need of white cane for a blind child in the whole class and to the whole school. Explaining the advantages of having white cane to the blind child and teacher to use it for using it effectively. Planning physical recreations. Now when we come to physical adaptations, we see that the children need to move around freely. They should not be banging into pots and sharp nails and injuring themselves. So it is very important that the physical adaptations are made accordingly. I would not say that you should change the environment so much that the child is feeling child is not able to equate this with the normal environment. Even if you do it in the school, आपने classroom में सब कुछ जगह दे दी उसको चलने के लिए, सब कुछ हटा दिया. But when the child goes to the normal environment outside the school, the child has to face the same obstacles. Nobody will remove these obstacles from his or her way. So I would say that some adaptations have to be made, but not to that an extent कि वो बच्चा चल रहा है तो सब हट जाओ आगे से. These kind of things should not happen because the child has to move in society. So we are preparing him or her for the future, for the society. So that way, those things which can injure the child or which can, really affect his movement to a serious extent, that have to be taken care of. Another thing which we have to think about is physical recreation. Now what happens is that when I have seen many children and schools organizing picnics and going out and participating in extracurricular activities. What happens is with these children, either they are locked in the rooms, they are asked to stay back, or they are asked to stay back with the monitor of the class or with another sighted student, or they are not able to participate in any activity, any play, any music program, anything in this thing. In those days, in that case also they are asked to stay back in the class by the teachers. This is I am talking about regular schools. And as a result what happens is, I interviewed a child. मैंने उससे पूछा कि आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम है स्कूल में. दिस वाज अ रेगुलर स्कूल. और उस बच्चे ने मेरे को बताया कि मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, मेरी वजह से दूसरे बच्चे को प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. आई आस्क्ड हिम व्हाई. ही सेज मेरी वजह से उसको मुझे देखने के लिए टीचर क्लास में छोड़ जाती है, और इसके लिए वो मेरे को क्या सोचता होगा कि इसके एक तो खुद नहीं जा सकता, उसकी वजह से मेरा भी मज़ा गया. सो आई डोंट वांट द अदर चिल्ड्रन आल्सो टू सफ़र because of me. So you can understand what these children feel by being segregated. This is not inclusion. When we talk about inclusion, we are talking about participation. They have to participate not in educational activities only, but also in other activities. That's how we say they are included. If you are not having any provision for including them and you're segregating them, then it is segregation within inclusion. This is not what inclusion is all about. In no way we have to segregate these children. If they can play something, if they can participate in any program, in any capacity, let them participate. Let them be a monitor of the class also sometime, one day. So these kind of responsibilities have to be given to them, and what I read, these kind of physical adaptations are important, like playgrounds. Now playgrounds generally are so rough, they are having such bad flooring, and also sometimes the children this is true for all children, but for the visually impaired they will not be able to see a rock, they will not be able to see some surface like that, or some depression, कोई गड्ढा होगा, कुछ होगा तो वो गिर जाएंगे. So all these things, physical adaptations need to be done for these children. And I feel that these children are children like any other child, and they have the right to be included in all these physical activities.
Ma'am, but like just like you mentioned about the picnic, so if we take a case, there also somebody has to take care of that child.
Yes.
So that is equivalent or somewhat equal to like taking care in the class. So can't we just say like there also the responsibility is equal?
See, taking care of another, I'll show you, I'll go to another slide. Taking care of a child or assigning a responsibility of this child in picnic to another sighted student is a different thing. At least both of them are participating in the activity. The only thing is that you have to take care of that child, that the child does not have, knows where to go and what to do. But keeping them away from this participation is a very grave thing. It affects the child's self-esteem to a great extent. उसका अपना ही बिल्कुल उसको मालूम ही नहीं है क्या सब बच्चे जो मज़े कर रहे हैं उसको उससे deprive रखना is not a very healthy thing for any child. So I think this was your question. What did you actually want to ask? I want to.
Ma'am, like keeping a child, like you had interviewed that child. The child said that it's bad that a regular child has to take care of me, and because of me, that child is also not getting the exposure. So the same thing if we go to the playground, if we take that child along with the whole class, there also somebody or teacher or the child has to take care of that child.
No. It's not like that somebody has to take care of that child. The child needs to be given. This is what the whole foundation of inclusive education is. The child needs to be involved in an activity which the child can perform. So if all children are running and if this child cannot run, he can be given something else to do. And when the child is given some other activity, the child will understand that because of his vision problem, he is not able to run, or he can also be taught to run. If the teacher has taken, a physical education teacher has taken interest and taught the child how to run, where to run, shown this thing, the child does not need any support. The support is only needed for very small children. Like if they are not knowing the place, if you take them to a new place, then they need to, otherwise they can move around anywhere. They have no problems. Once they know where the whole environment or the whole mapping they have done in their brain, where they are going around, then they can run and do anything. They need to be trained for it, and they can be given activities like they play cards, they play chess, they play cricket with a sound cricket ball. They play cricket very well. So all these activities and physical recreation, and for picnics, they can eat, drink, sing, play like others. Only they need to be, for taking from one place to another, or be told यहाँ खाना लगा हुआ है, यहाँ ये है. Only for this they need support. They don't need a support कि कोई हाथ खड़ पकड़ के बैठ जाए. No, none of the child will like that. So this is how it is.
So not directly, but in indirect way.
Indirect way, you have to take care of all children. Like as parents, we take care of our children. Even with our sighted children, if they go out or they are playing and we feel that we should see that they are okay. The same way, this child needs a bit extra care, because the child cannot see where he has to go, or where the things are. This is the limitation of incidental learning. He doesn't know. So for that perspective, the child has to be taken care of. Told that this is what. Mostly what happens is, if this child is there and the other children are not aware of this child's problems, so they keep doing things they want to do and nobody tells this child. तो वो एक जगह खड़ा रहेगा, बाकी बच्चे यहाँ भाग जाएंगे, वहाँ भाग जाएंगे, खा लेंगे, पी लेंगे, इसको कोई नहीं बताएगा. From that perspective, he does need the support of another child. So coming to my next slide, this is a picture I want to show. You can see this picture and how these two children who are visually impaired are holding each other's hands and walking around, and that also during the recess period. This picture is clear indication of how these children are now also segregated in inclusive classroom. This is a regular Kendriya Vidyalaya where these children are going for study, and here when they have to go around in recess, they only stick to each other and they don't stick to any other child, because the other children are not aware of their needs. They don't want to mix with them. They think they are not belonging to the regular school. So that is why this is happening. So this picture I took because I found it very strange that while all other children were playing together, eating together, running together, these two children who were one with low vision, one with blindness, were just sticking around and going around on their own. So you can see it yourself how strange it is, how bad it looks that only these two children. This is a Kendriya Vidyalaya. How many children would be there? So this is how it is. The next area of special needs which I indicated was verbal and non-verbal communication. While understanding verbs, now verbal communication is when we talk to each other or we use language. That is verbal communication, and non-verbal communication is when it is through body language. So explaining that in terms of needs, while understanding verbs, the blind child can be involved in acting it. Use real life examples which the blind child has also experienced. Use simple sentences in conversation. Ask questions and answer questions. Make the child familiar with the usage of language cues in variety of settings. Talk to the child. These are all strategies for verbal communication. I am coming to the non-verbal communication later. Now, when I talked about these strategies, it is very clear that there would be children who would not understand many words, because their verbal communication would also be affected by the limitation of experiences. उनको कई वर्ड समझ नहीं आएंगे, उनको कई सेंटेंसेस समझ नहीं आएंगे, उनको ये भी नहीं पता लगेगा कि किस तरह क्या ये जो सेंटेंस है इसका कितना वो है, unless and until you talk to them a lot. These children benefit from discussions in the classroom. These children benefit from talking. You have to talk and you have to also explain. अब जैसे भागना है, till these children run, they will not understand what the word भागना means. उनको भाग के दिखाना पड़ेगा, जैसे मैं कह रही हूँ acting out the verbs, इसका मतलब है कि उनको भाग के दिखाओ, ये भागना होता है. अदरवाइज अगर आप वर्ड से एक्सप्लेन करोगे, वर्बल लैंग्वेज से, कि भागने का मतलब है तेज तेज चलना, और ये उनको तेज चलना और भागने में अंतर समझ नहीं आएगा. दे विल नॉट बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड. द सेम वे इफ यू टॉक अबाउट खाना, when they are very small, while they are eating they have to be told, इसको ये कहते हैं, इसको वो कहते हैं, इसको भागना कहते हैं, इसको सोना कहते हैं, इसको हाथ मिलाना कहते हैं. All these things have to be done for them. So this is how they understand. They associate the actual doing with the verbs and other words. Verbal communication, that's how. Now when they shake hands, आप कैसे हैं and all that, what we बात करते हैं, ये सब उनको सिखाना पड़ेगा. वर्बल कैसे कम्युनिकेट करना है, किसी के साथ मिलते हो तो किस तरह बात करनी है, क्योंकि वी लर्न बाय लुकिंग एट अदर पीपल्स. These children do not look at other people and learn, so they have to be taught all these things. The next is non-verbal communication.
So ma'am, before going on to non-verbal communication, we'll take a short break and continue after a while.
This is Aparna. She loves chess and Shah Rukh Khan. Her best friend is Swati. She also has visual impairment. This is Neeraj. He plays many instruments. He loves Mohammad Rafi and cricket. He also uses crutches for mobility.
चंदा है तू, मेरा सूरज है तू,
This is Raj Bala.
मेरी आँखों का तारा है तू, जीती हूँ मैं बस तुझे देख कर.
With her husband and daughter. She loves cooking and watching TV.
सूरज है तू, आ मेरी आँखों का तारा है तू.
She also has cerebral palsy. Look beyond the disability. Look at the person.
हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. ओ मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday.
ऑटिज्म एक व्यापक विकासात्मक विकलांगता है जिसके लक्षण जीवन के प्रथम 3 वर्ष में ही दिखाई पड़ते हैं, जैसे असंगत खेल, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं, शाब्दिक संकेतों पर अभिव्यक्ति न देना,
Where is the cup? देखो, open your eyes, open करो, open करके, open.
नियमित कार्यक्रम परिवर्तन का विरोध करना एवं अवलोकनीय शारीरिक उच्च स्तरीय या निम्न स्तरीय क्रियाकलाप। UNCRPD 2007 सेक्शन 1 ऑफ आर्टिकल 4 निशक्तता के क्षेत्र में कार्यरत प्रोफेशनल के प्रशिक्षण पर महत्व देता है। ऑटिज्म के क्षेत्र में सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाएं कार्यरत हैं जो भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा पंजीकृत हैं। सोसाइटी फॉर एडवांस स्टडी इन रिहैबिलिटेशन एक ऐसी ही गैर सरकारी संस्था है। कनिष्क 13 साल का एक ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है जो इसी संस्था से प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। असंगत क्रियाएं, कार्यकलापों में निरस्ता, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं जैसे बॉडी रॉकिंग और फिंगर रिगलिंग उसमें देखी जा सकती है। उसे मैचिंग और पेस्टिंग, पॉइंटिंग जैसी क्रियाएं सिखाई जाती हैं।
Very good. Glass. Where is the glass? Glass. Very good. कप को टच करो जल्दी से। कप को। Where is the cup? Very good. कप में क्या करता है कनिष्क? टी पीता है। चलो ग्लास। Where is the glass? Very good. चलो बाउल की तरह बाउल जल्दी से टच करो बाउल को। Very good. बाउल में क्या करता है कनिष्क?
तथा साथ ही साथ रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताएं जैसे खाना, पीना, कपड़े पहनना, और व्यायाम संबंधी प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है। ऑटिस्टिक बच्चों को भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार की कार्यविधियां उनके स्तर के अनुसार सिखाई जाती हैं, जैसे कुछ बच्चों के लिए कलरिंग विद इन वन एरिया, मैचिंग एंड आइडेंटिफिकेशन, फाइन मोटर स्किल्स, आई हैंड कोऑर्डिनेशन, कंसेप्ट ऑफ वेजिटेबल्स, फ्रूट्स, बॉडी पार्ट्स, कलर्स पर जोर दिया जाता है तथा कुछ को प्रश्न पढ़ के उत्तर देने में और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने में सक्षम बनाया जाता है। इसके अलावा राइम्स, डांसिंग, सिंगिंग द्वारा लेजर एंड रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज में भाग लेने के लिए प्रोत्साहित किया जाता है। इन सभी कार्यकलापों एवं प्रशिक्षण का एकमात्र उद्देश्य उन्हें स्वनिर्भर बनाना है ताकि ये डगमगाते पांव सक्षम बन जीवन के एक एक पायदान पर दृढ़ता से आगे बढ़ें और अपनी मंजिल को पा लें। एक तारा टिमटिमाता, उसने आकाश को छू लिया। एक लौ जली कहीं, उसने अंधकार को मिटा दिया।
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were discussing about the special needs, and now we'll continue with our non-verbal communication.
Thank you. Now coming to non-verbal communication, we include under non-verbal communication body motion, gestures using hands and other parts of the body, facial expressions, posture, etc. Examples of this is waving, dropping head, nodding, etc. We also include touching behaviors, example shaking hands, hugging, patting, etc. We also include vocal qualities, example laughing, sighing, crying, coughing, clearing the throat, etc. Use of dolls and puppets, drama or role playing, speech, debate, inoculation, dance classes, etc. These last two are the strategies to improve non-verbal communication. So, when we talk about body motion, gestures and other things, you must have seen other people coming and shaking hands, calling each other. Now, till somebody touches this child and says, I am here, or calls the child by name, or somehow greets that child, the child with visual impairment will not be knowing that somebody is standing near him or her. What happens is generally these children with visual impairment keep talking that the other child will move away. So they cannot even see the facial expression of the other child to know whether the child is liking what they are saying or not liking what they are saying, like other sighted children. So non-verbal communication is very important for them to learn, and they have to be trained in that. When they meet somebody, how to raise their voice, hi, how are you, and have a pleasant day, these kind of things they never learn on their own. They have to be taught. And I have seen that these many children who are taught this by the parents, by the teachers, who have taken special pains to do that, are quite popular among their classmates. They have friends and they do what the other children do. But if they have not been taught this, they are just standing like, others may think he doesn't know or she doesn't know how to communicate, but actually they don't know what kind of communication, non-verbal communication they are supposed to do. And to improve and for training, as I said, the last two strategies are through debates, through role play. All these things do help the child with visual impairment to learn non-verbal communication. This is an area of great lacuna, and I think nobody concentrates on this in inclusive education till date. And I feel that this is an area which will make them, just like any other child, without even with sight, they can do better than. I have seen people who have been successful, who have been using this non-verbal communication even with problems like visual impairment. So I think the teachers need to know what is meant by visual non-verbal communication, and teachers need to take special pains, both special teachers and regular teachers, to cultivate this, inculcate these non-verbal communication in a child with visual impairment. And even in other children, I think even they need to be trained in many ways how to be, non-verbally communicate. This body language, what does it mean? How does one sit? How does one, have food? All these things, do make a difference.
Ma'am, generally I've seen that these visually impaired children, they don't trust the other person very easily, especially the children. So does a rapport building factor matters a lot in this training of verbal and non-verbal communication?
Why did you say that do not trust other people so easily? Do you have an example of that?
Yes, ma'am, because I have seen that if a regular child is there, if you go and talk to him, the maximum of them will respond to you, yes, hello and this way. But a child who is visually impaired cannot see, so he or she does not know what to say and who is the person am I talking to. So generally they don't trust easily.
No, this is a difference. There is a difference. It's not the trusting thing. That's what I brought this issue. Have you seen this? It is not that they don't trust people. It is just this, that they feel lost. They don't know how to do it, so they withdraw. It's basically they don't know and they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want to make a fool of themselves. So they just withdraw from the situation and do not communicate so well with the other child. The case is not of trusting, the case is not knowing how to do it. So if somebody does not even come and acknowledges in front of them that they are present, then the child will not even know the direction of from where this child is coming, what they are doing, how are they in a hurry, or they have time to talk to that child, so the child withdraws. Supposing I am on the road and I meet somebody and I know that person is in a hurry, that person will not stop or just wave from the far away and go away. I'll know that this person is in a hurry, doesn't want to stop and talk to me. But for a blind child, it's not possible to know that. So as a result, the child keeps talking, or the other child may just walk away, say I'm in a hurry. So this child is left like this. So to save themselves from this kind of hurt and this kind of situation, they try to withdraw from these kind of communication. This may be possible, but as far as trusting is concerned, I think children do trust. They don't have the mistrust. Their mistrust comes only when they have experiences which make them mistrust other people. Otherwise, no child will mistrust. So that is what happens, and that is what we should be talking about. That don't let this mistrust come in them. Include them in even communications, both verbal and non-verbal. They should know, so that they can trust their own vision and their own experiences of communicating with other children. So coming to the next slide, I also would like to say that when we talk about use of dolls, puppets and all, it means that the blind child can touch these things and know that how to shake hands, how to show those kind of gestures which are welcome gestures. So all that, for that, these two last points are for strategies to be used for developing non-verbal communication in children with visual impairment. Another area which is very important is literacy and learning medium. Now, literacy and learning medium for children with visual impairment includes reading and writing, making use of appropriate medium like braille, print, audio and tactile media. Some children may use a combination of different media. Now, what is literacy? What is learning? We all know that every child learns, constructs knowledge on his or her own, based on his or her own experiences. But to build that knowledge and to learn in the classroom and to be literate in various subjects, they need to develop their reading and writing skills. They need to use their residual vision for reading print. They need to use tape recorders for taping the lectures, sometimes also recording their own answers. So all kind of media they use to learn and to be literate. So sometimes the teacher may need to use a combination of these. Like children with no vision who do not use braille but read print may not be able to read so much print at a go, because what happens is the child gets tired using the bringing the print too close to the eye like this and trying to read one line. The child may get tired, so the child will be very slow. So the child may also record the lecture and read simultaneously later at home, just to get the good feel of that lecture. So a multiplicity of these media combinations is required for children with visual impairment, and I think the schools generally are not using these kind of combinations. They leave these children on their own to read and write, to learn, to develop concepts. No teacher is actually taking so much care, in the sense giving extra attention to these children from that perspective. So I feel that medium of instruction and to be literate and to learn, these things have to be taken into consideration. The next area for the need development is use of technology. Now, without technology, nothing works for children with disabilities, and this includes even children with visual impairment. The kind of technology which is very useful for them includes internet and computers, braillers, closed circuit television, typewriters, talking calculators, tape recorders, etc. are some of the other devices that are important for visually impaired child to read and write and have access to curriculum. Educational aids also are important, and they include abacus and Taylor frame, devices useful for learning mathematics, raised line drawing board, geometry kit, reading machines, closed circuit television, again I have written that here, braille writers, slate and stylus if required, and also optical aids. Now this means actually this slide is basically explaining how the special needs in the area of literacy and learning can be met. Now and also how technology can assist in meeting these special needs in the area of literacy and learning. If a child wants to learn mathematics, for child with visual impairment, he needs to use educational aids like abacus and Taylor frame. I am sure many of the people would be knowing what it means, but it also means that these children learn everything, they have access to the curriculum, but they need some devices to gain that access like other children. अगर मैं अपने आप पढ़ के किताब से ज्योमेट्री सब अपने आप बना सकती हूँ, ये बच्चा भी कर सकता है, लेकिन इसके लिए इसको स्पेशल टेक्नोलॉजी की ज़रूरत है. ये सब टीचर्स को इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन में मैनेज करने के लिए इन बच्चों को जानना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि किस तरह की टेक्नोलॉजी इनको चाहिए. Optical aids means these aids like magnifiers and the ones which come between the things to be read and grasped and the child's eye, like spectacles हैं, optical aids हैं, कई तरह की optical aids आती हैं, magnifiers, hand magnifiers, and also children with low vision may also need reading stands, because if they have to bend over the paper like this and read, then they will have a sprain in the neck or strain in their neck. So these kind of reading stands are important. I have given only few examples of the technology. Internet, we all know, is a communication device. Now with internet, these children can access all the experiences they need to gain. With internet, they can read about things, we have software which can talk to them. So internet is a very internet and computer. With computer, you have a program like JAWS, which can help them to enlarge the print, read the enlarged print. Then photocopying machines are there to enlarge the print. For children with no vision, generally they may read in 18 font size or they may read in 24 font size. We can make books for them with those font sizes. So all these educational aids are important to access curriculum in the classroom. In inclusive education, we are talking about the same curriculum for all children. ऐसा नहीं होता कि इन बच्चों के लिए curriculum अलग है, syllabus अलग है, किताबें कुछ और लिखा हुआ है और बाकी बच्चों के लिए कुछ और लिखा हुआ है. They all have to read the same curriculum, they have to read the same textbooks, they have to give exams, they have to pass classes like other children, but they need some technology, they need some adaptations, and technology has advanced so much. We have talking calculators, we have talking books. So technology has advanced so much. I think one full session, one full lecture can go on technology for the visually impaired. It will include the hardware as well as the software they can use for gaining access to curriculum. The next slide would be on.
Ma'am, so like in case of optical aids, if we talk about a low vision child, to a certain limit, if we say that if a low vision child uses his or her residual vision, a certain improvement can be seen. But if an optical aid is given, the child becomes dependent on them and he will not use those functional vision.
No. Actually, the child, when I come to the strategies, it is very important to have a collaborative meeting with the special educator and with the doctor, eye doctor, just to know what this child can do and what this child cannot do. The optical aids are only a facilitating thing. Without optical aids, the child may not be able to use the residual vision also, because the residual vision is not like keen vision or very accurate vision. The child needs to bolster up that, I would say, to stimulate that vision also, or to make it better, needs some optical aids. Like we use spectacles if we have problems in reading. The same way the child may have problems in reading, and with the use of spectacle, which is an optical aid, the child can improve those his residual vision for reading. So these are not on which the child will be dependent, but on the other hand, the child needs to use them. It is important for him to or her to use them, to use his residual vision. Otherwise, child's residual vision is nothing. It will not, even if you develop it to an extent, it can never be as accurate as yours and mine. So if we have normal vision, so in that case the child does need optical aids, and without that the child will be so strained, his eyes or her eyes would be so strained that he will not be able to survive for more than 5 minutes reading, 10 minutes reading. So these facilitate his residual vision functions. So I think they are important. So we come to our study skills. Lack of vision may affect the child's task performance in the class. You may find that the child is, when I say you, it means the teachers, slower than his or her peers, needs more learning materials than others, including tactual and auditory materials, needs more individual attention, has difficulty in using the blackboard, needs to manage his or her time more efficiently, has problems finishing his or her homework, has difficulty in using library, cannot take notes like others. Now, when we talk about the special needs in the area of studying, the study skills of this child are affected because of his vision. The child may need a number of support, like if the child needs to go to the library, the child needs to be guided by some person to use the library books. The library books need to be translated into braille, or they need to be computer or xeroxed in large font for the child to be using it. And also the child needs to have notes, because in one go the child is listening and not seeing anything on the blackboard, and may want to repeat the lectures, or may want his parents to read those notes for the class lecture. So all these supportive measures are important for the child, which the other children in the class can help this child to achieve, or the teacher can help this child to achieve. In any way, the child needs these kind of supports from a regular and a special educator to study, to develop the study skills and to achieve well in the class. Study skills से हमारा क्या मतलब है? जो skills हम granted लेते हैं, the children go and study, किताब खोली पढ़ लिया और next day आके exam दे दिया. These kind of skills they don't have to learn as such. For this child to have that kind of a thing needs a number of things. Like अगर उसको कोई exam देना तो उसको notes चाहिए जो घर में उसको पढ़ के सुनाएगा, कोई tape recorded lecture चाहिए. So these kind of things are required, and the teacher must understand that this child is going to be slower than other children if he or she is using braille. Braille पढ़ना से थोड़ा बच्चे की reading slower होती है. उसके अलावा if you see the kind of aids they use for mathematics like abacus and Taylor frame में एक maths का sum करना regular लिख के sum करने से बहुत ज़्यादा time लेता है. So if the teacher is giving the same curriculum for these children and same homework for these children like other children, तो ये बच्चा पिछड़ता जाएगा, and the failure is not the failure of the child, it is more a failure of the teacher कि बच्चा fail हो गया. So these kind of things have to be done by the teacher.
Ma'am, in a regular class, if we talk about geometry, it's not easy for a visually impaired child to cope up with geometry after certain age, after certain class. So those things are, we can say, compensated by the resource teacher, or should they be completely deleted from their curriculum?
Actually, the provisions have been made by CBSE. I know this, that there are some options available, but every child, as I said earlier, is different. And since these options are there, the child who cannot cope up or cannot be taught geometry or cannot learn geometry, has no vision for it, may want to opt out of this subject, may not want to take this subject. But there are other children, like there is this option available of doing away with mathematics after class 8 and taking some other subject in lieu of that mathematics subject. For many people have protested and said that why are we not giving the equal opportunities? If we want to do mathematics, let us do mathematics. Since there was an option, the equal opportunity was there. But schools में क्या हुआ, special schools में क्या हुआ, क्योंकि ये option था, किसी को भी नहीं पढ़ाया वो. So these kind of things we cannot, standardize for all children. Some children may be able to cope up, some children may not be able to cope up. Some children may have support of their parents and siblings to make them understand everything. Some children may not have. So it should be optional, but it should not be completely deleted from their curriculum. If they want to do it and if they have the facilities to do it, they should be allowed to do it. This is what I would say. Now coming back to my next slide, which is a very, away from the thing, career education and daily living skills. I think guidance, information, opportunity to meet successfully visually impaired adults and training in terms of specific job requirements is a part of career education. And for daily living skills, personal needs, dressing skills, eating skills and table manners, social emotional skills are important. The teachers need to know whether when a child is in the secondary education or high secondary education, the teacher need to know what kind of career and vocation the child can take and guide the parents accordingly. In terms, when the child is small, the daily living needs like the personal needs are important, and sometimes the parents are illiterate and are not able to teach the daily the child the daily living skills, and this generally happens in rural settings because the child comes straight to school and teachers are not aware how to teach them. So the child doesn't even know how to button the shirts, doesn't know how to tie shoelaces, doesn't know how to eat, would spill food while eating, and as a result he'll be or she'll be ridiculed more by other children. So the teacher, if she realizes this kind of thing is happening, needs to take help from a special educator, and when there is no special educator around, then a special school needs to be contacted so that these daily living skills can be developed in the child, so that the child is able to carry on his own personal activities on his own or her own, because without that there would be a lot of teasing by other children. So these would be an area which also different levels of schooling needs to be taken up by the teachers.
In your slide you mentioned about social and emotional skills. So what do we understand by this?
I will come to the psychosocial support. This is my next slide. Psychosocial supports. I think every child with visual impairment needs to also be looked at from psychological and social perspective. Coming to the slide, I would say the strategies for the teachers to build up to support the child psychologically and socially would be: do not let other children in the class tease this child. Always check her copy like the copies of other children, which generally does not happen. Don't segregate by making her sit with other disabled children. Work as partners with family, resource teachers and community. Get the report of the eye doctor and special educator regarding what the child can do and what she cannot do. Make sure that the child is not ridiculed or bullied. Discuss the problems of the child with the family. They will listen to the teacher much more carefully when they have confidence in her. Mannerisms like poking of the eyes, shading the eyes with hand to avoid glare, keeping the book close to the eye in order to read, cocking the head sideways, etc., may disturb the low vision child herself. These can be checked and controlled by the teacher. Help the child to participate in whatever games she can play, like cards, chess, cricket and sound ball. These kind of games can be made available for this child. Encourage her to participate in school activity and concerts. Do not consider child with visual impairment to be only resource teachers' children. The child should be subjected to the same discipline as other children. No discrimination should be done in this regard. These ideas for the teachers are very important to build the psychosocial support. Now,
so ma'am, before going on to this topic further, we'll take a short break and continue this topic after a break.
The state of knowledge exists. The will, the capacity, and method are usually the problem. मानसिक मंदता एक ऐसी विकलांगता है जो 18 वर्ष की आयु से पूर्व कभी भी हो सकती है, जिसमें व्यवहार अनुकूलता में कमी एवं बुद्धि क्षमता 70% से कम होती है. Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा देश भर में पंजीकृत केंद्र इस बात को प्रमाणित करते हैं. NIMH प्रादेशिक केंद्र नई दिल्ली एक ऐसा ही केंद्र है जहां छात्रों को प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है. जिसके उपरांत वे मंदबुद्धि बच्चों की सेवा में नियुक्त होते हैं। क्लासरूम टीचिंग, ग्रुप टीचिंग एवं भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद के नव शिखर चैनल पर प्रसारित टेलीकॉन्फ्रेंसेस द्वारा संबंधित विषयों पर विस्तार पूर्वक ज्ञान दिया जाता है। मेडिकल, ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी, फिजियोथेरेपी, स्पीच थेरेपी, साइकोलॉजी और स्पेशल एजुकेशन जैसे क्षेत्रों में छात्रों को प्रशिक्षित किया जाता है। प्रयोगात्मक अनुभव एवं अभ्यास के लिए टीचर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम के उपरांत छात्रों को मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के साथ कक्षाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है और इंडिविजुअलाइज्ड एजुकेशन प्लान का भी आधार बनाया जाता है, जिससे वे संपूर्ण शिक्षा एवं चिकित्सा शैली को समझ सकें। इस पूरे प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम के दौरान विद्यार्थी जर्नल्स, न्यूज़लेटर्स, पेरियोडिकल्स, चार्ट्स, मॉडल्स, कंप्यूटर ट्रेनिंग एवं टेक्स्ट बुक्स का उपयोग कर सकते हैं। कहते हैं, कीप योर फेस टू द सनशाइन एंड यू कैन नॉट सी द शैडो। इसी बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए विद्यार्थियों को सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है, जहां वे मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के लिए निरीक्षण, प्रशिक्षण एवं अनुसंधान का दायित्व संभालते हैं और इसके पश्चात ये विद्यार्थी इस प्रशिक्षण का उपयोग मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के सामाजिक एवं शैक्षणिक उत्थान एवं विकास में करते हैं और एक लक्ष्य की ओर आगे बढ़ते हैं। और फिर लक्ष्य कितना ही दूर हो, फासला नजरों का धोखा भी तो हो सकता है। वो मिले या ना मिले, हाथ बढ़ाकर देखो।
हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। ओ मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। We shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday. We shall overcome someday.
Welcome back after the break. Before going on to the break, we were discussing about psychosocial support, and now we'll continue with the same.
Yeah, when I was talking about psychosocial support, the factor which I want to concentrate here is don't segregate them within inclusion. क्या देखा गया है कि कई बार ये बच्चे क्लास में एक दूसरे के साथ ही बैठे होते हैं और बाकी बच्चों के साथ नहीं बैठे होते, तो उससे क्या होता है कि दे आर सेग्रीगेटेड विद इन द इंक्लूसिव क्लासरूम. So ये teachers को बहुत ध्यान में रखना है. This is very important that they should not be segregated so that they don't feel lonely and they feel happy and participate in the inclusive classroom. Coming to the next slide, it's a very important slide. We are talking about classroom adaptations. The classroom adaptation for including children with visual impairment would be glare or light from the front should be totally avoided. Uniform light from a tube light is better than light coming from one source. The classroom should be painted light. Highly polished surfaces of the desk and shiny decorations can cause glare. Objects in the environment should be labeled to encourage print reading. This will develop the residual vision of children. Identify areas where better contrast is needed to help the child with low vision to function better. Painting top part of the stairs with a contrasting color or putting color strips help the low vision child to identify the steps easily. Molding around the doors and windows in a different color will enable a low vision child to spot them. Brightly colored toys, games, puzzles, etc. to stimulate the vision of the learner with low vision should be given. Floors of the classroom can be covered with some kind of rubber matting to reduce noise, because lot of it depends on the auditory medium. Availability of a plug point near the seat of the learner, extra space around his or her seat is also important. Blackboard should provide proper contrast. A well lit part of the blackboard and a soft white chalk is a good contrast. Without that, they cannot read and write from the blackboard. The children, and this is the children with low vision. Now there would be some educational adaptations which are very important for the teacher to undertake. The teacher should speak as she writes on the board. She should give extra time to copy from the blackboard to some children. Large print blank maps should help in mapping work, and textual teaching learning material can be used for children with visual impairment. The child can answer the questions in writing, orally, or by using tape records. Discussion in the classroom are very valuable. Peers should be made aware of the special needs of visually impaired. Highlight the success areas. This is important for self-esteem. Reward achievements. There should be no time limits on examination, because the children with visual impairment may take twice as much time. Large print question papers can be provided if the need arises. I will show you this photograph where a inclusive classroom, the children are segregated. Again, you will see these two children segregated within an inclusive classroom because they are going out together. None of the children are there with them. They look segregated even in the picture. Now, in the classroom educational adaptation, concepts need to be developed by providing educational aids, using texture and tactile graphics, and drawing attention to other senses of touch, hearing, smell and taste to learn about the environment. Give clear directions and avoid using words like there and here. Explain the meaning of different words in detail for conceptual development. Encourage the child to play with other children in the class and other children to play with the child with visual impairment. Physical education should be adapted to suit the needs of the child, like using color contrast and sound. Bright students in the class can be appointed by the teacher to assist the learner for note taking. Give opportunities to have many new and varied experiences, and to be an active learner and make use of concrete materials. The teacher should be loud and clear in the class and ensure that the child with visual impairment is listening while she is teaching. Give extra time to the learner using braille or trying to read independently. She should try to use multimodal delivery rather than only formal textbooks. Use flexible timetable and curriculum. Give equal punishment for mistakes. Point out to him or her if she or he is untidy and appreciate if dressed well. Study material may have to be prepared in large clear type. Photocopies can enlarge anything, and for color, black is still preferred for as best contrast. Bold line paper, felt tip pens make writing easier by increasing contrast. Now, these were some of the adaptations needed for giving access to curriculum to these children. Now, coming to the my last few slides. Before I talk about how we facilitate inclusion, I would like to talk about a bit on these educational adaptations which are being which I showed just now. The whole idea of making educational adaptations is not to give anything less, but to give something equal to other children. When I talked about scolding the child for mistakes, disciplining the child, telling the child that the child is not well dressed, would make the child feel that I am same as others. I have the same treatment, I have to live in the same world, I have to compete with these children. Generally what happens is that when we talk to the teachers, the attitude of the teachers is इतना ही कर ले बहुत है, इससे ज़्यादा नहीं, हम इससे expect भी नहीं करते. Or it is something like इतने बच्चों को पढ़ाना है तो इस बच्चे को कैसे हम करें, औरों से नहीं हम पढ़ा पाते तो इसको कैसे पढ़ाएं. These kind of things actually underscore unequal treatment. Reasonable differentiation is important when the need arises. Like supposing a child is not able to do the entire curriculum because of his slowness on Taylor frame, or he takes more time for reading Braille, then you need to make some accommodation. But if you are giving less to the child, even if the child is capable of doing, then it is discrimination. So no two people are alike, and the treatment we give them is also dependent on the needs. So if you are teaching one child in a particular way, and the other child is different from that child, you have to take consideration of the child's special needs to include that child in the classroom. So all these educational adaptations help these children with visual impairment to develop and learn up to their potential. Of course their potential may be different from others, but whatever they can do, attempts should be made to at least make them learn that much. Finally, I am coming to some of the examples of how we can facilitate for teachers, or for rehabilitation workers or anybody when they see some behavior, something in the classrooms. Now the first area, I will come to the slide, is behavior. What you might see, this is an example of an inclusive classroom. Everybody is playing outside except this child with visual impairment. She walks alone or sits separately while others are having good time running and playing. This happens most of the time in school. What should you do then as a teacher? Teach the child with the help of other students to play chess or other card games. Ask the authorities to set up such a table so that all those who are interested in playing such a game can play during recess. Second area is educational performance. What you might see, the student appears to be slow in learning new concepts or ideas and needs experiences with concrete materials and detailed explanation. The child is not able to learn concepts and ideas because of his visual impairment. What can the teacher do? Create variety of situations where the concept can be used and applied. Also let the student teach the concept to other students who have the same difficulty in learning. This will be by practice the difficult concept can be mastered. Another area, I am only talking about 4 areas which are very important. There are of course many other areas, but these 4 areas I think are very important. Social interaction. What you may see in the school, the student does not greet his or her peers with a hello and sometimes just ignores their presence. You should not think, what should the teacher do? She should not think that the student is unfriendly or has difficulty in communication. It is because the child with visual impairment very often will not be able to initiate communication as she does not know who is present in the environment. You should have the entire class prepare autobiographies, life histories, stories for all students to make them understand how one can greet one another. Tell the peers to call the student by name and their own names in the greetings so that the other child knows that which child he is talking to. The last area would be attitudes in the classroom. The student may seem uninterested and bored during teaching. Lack of facial expression can also sometimes give the impression the student is bored. It is only because the child is not able to understand fully what is being taught that he is looking so bored. The child should have lessons in Braille or print prepared beforehand. This gives that student a chance to participate in more activities involving all children. Highlight the strengths of each child and ask questions. Now you will find in this slide, this is a very interesting slide that sometimes when this happens, as you ask me a question, the child does not trust any other child, or the child looks bored in the classroom. I have seen this happening. I have seen children sitting and not doing anything while others are doing things like reading, writing, because the child is not able to understand what is happening in the class. If the teacher prepares notes beforehand for all children and tells them that this will what is I am going to teach tomorrow and you should come prepared, the child will be able to participate. Even if he is missing a few portions or not, the teacher is going fast, all children can participate. So that boredom will go. So the teachers should make attempts to include these children, taking care of their special needs. Then I talked about behavior. I showed you a slide where the children are segregated. This only happens is when the other children do not include them in their activities, and their behavior is then ridiculed, because basically all children are children first and blind later. So we have to take all these factors into consideration if we want to include or facilitate inclusion of these children in the classroom.
So ma'am, can we say that we shouldn't develop a feeling of pity towards them?
Naturally, why should they be, we should have pity for anybody. We are not giving charity to them. When we are including them in the classroom, they have the same right as you and me or our children in the classroom to study. Most of the time regular school people feel ये बच्चे तो इस स्कूल में पढ़ना नहीं है, इनको तो special education में जाना चाहिए, but that is not the case. Education is a fundamental right for all children, including these children. So it is not the pity, it is that the school has to be prepared to teach them. The special needs are not of the child as such, they are the needs of the school. They have to meet these needs of the child, and then the child will grow and prosper like any other child. So it is not pity, it is the basic right to education. If they are denied that, then of course they are being discriminated against, I would say that. And I feel that things are happening, many things are changing. More and more children are now being included in regular schools, and it is the duty of people like you and me to facilitate their inclusion. And that's what I feel. It is possible, it is beneficial, and it has to be facilitated.
Ma'am, in classroom also we've seen many a times, like some of those children who become friends with these visually impaired children, they tend to overprotect them, while the others who are like a little notorious, if we say, they tend to completely make fun of them, and that breaks, like if we say the trust part, if we say, that tends to break their trust. So in this case, the visually impaired child is not able to decide whether to take these good ones as the majority of people or the bad ones as the majority of people. So
if you talk about visually impaired children, just like as children, forget their vision impairment, and they go early to school like any other child, every child would experience some people whom the child can be friendly with and some people who are bad to that child. It's the same for visually impaired children. They also experience a lot of these kind of differences in the classroom. There would be some children who would be nice to them, help them. I would not say overprotect them, but help them to find their way, help them to copy the things from the board, give their copies to them, help them to understand a few concepts. There would be others who would push them, make them fall and run away. All this happens to other children also. But what research shows is that the earlier this child goes to a regular school, the better adjusted this child is, the better accepted this child is. Other children stop ridiculing him, they become friendly to him. She also gets as many friends as other children. The later the child goes to school, जैसे जैसे उसकी उम्र बढ़ती है और वो एक स्पेशल स्कूल से एक रेगुलर स्कूल में जाता है, तो उसकी एडजस्टमेंट उतनी ही मुश्किल होती है. I have talked to children who have gone in class 8th, and I have talked to children who have gone in class 1, and you will see they are vastly apart as far as adjustment is compared, because they get used to, other children get used to their being around and they treat them like themselves. But if you go late, then they, everybody has got their friends made, everybody has got their groups made. So then also the problems of adolescence and all come up. So all these things do affect the adjustment of this older child. So I think they are like any other children, so visual impairment does not make any difference to that.
Ma'am, even if like I have also seen this, we had two, if we compare, we had two visually impaired child, congenital blindness. Both of them were brought up in different families. One family gave up a lot of exposure during their critical period, the 0 to 3 years of age. One family was, they completely ignored the child, that it's a burden to their life. So the development seen between both of them was very different. The child who was given proper exposure like the regular child was almost near to it. The child could actually make out that this is this, this is this, while the child who was not given exposure was completely dull, a dull child, as we can say. So ma'am, one factor, can we say that this is also one factor in the development of?
Of course, early intervention is a very important factor for all children, especially for children with disabilities. What happens is that when the children are not given the experiences and the environment or the kind of stimulation they need in early childhood, it can lead to a lot of deficits. While for other children, these deficits can be overcome by good education. For these children, these deficits remain. So I think it is important that early intervention should be a very important area of intervention before these children are included in regular schools, because without early intervention, without building up these pre-inclusive skills, the child will be slower in the classrooms and also the child will have adjustment problems. So early intervention work is happening in the area of early intervention, and of course there is not much awareness about it, but it is an important area, I would say.
So in today's discussion, we discussed about what is inclusive education. Then we defined what is visual impairment and how is it different from the low vision children. Then we discussed about the different limitations that a visually impaired child suffers, the limitations to experiences, the limitations to the different kind of social skills and social ability to adapt. These are some of these limitations that we had seen. Then we later discussed about the different special needs a child needs, and we need to emphasize or stress a little more on them for the development of these visually impaired child. Then we discussed about the methods of facilitate the including the child into the normal environment, or can we say the regular environment. With that, we come to the end of our today's discussion. Thank you ma'am for sharing your valuable knowledge with us. I hope you enjoyed our show. Thank you for watching us. Finally.